So tonight I thought I would share something that I have had for about 9 years now. It's something I bought during Disneyland's 50th anniversary, and it is this CD box set called The Musical History of Disneyland. This was released as part of Disneyland's 50th anniversary in 2005. The retail price was, I believe, $149. I bought it for $99 by ordering it through Best Buy. The 50th anniversary kicked off in May of 2005, and that opening weekend for the 50th anniversary, there was all sorts of interesting vintage merchandise available aside from this box set, such as the monorail game, which was reissued for the 50th anniversary. There were also limited edition 50th anniversary gold mouse ears made for the occasion, and pretty much all of this retro merchandise had sold out during the first weekend of the 50th anniversary, which just goes to show how nostalgia really took center stage during Disneyland's 50th anniversary, which was the happiest homecoming on Earth. So the Musical History of Disneyland is a 6-disc CD box set, which came in this red box. And this isn't just your standard cardboard box, it's got a texture to it. Kind of like a book cover underneath of a dust jacket, where you've got that sort of textured surface. So the logo is perfectly smooth. And in case you're wondering about this yellow ribbon, there were actually two things that came inside of this box, and this ribbon was meant just to lift it up out of the box so you didn't have to tip the box over to actually take out the contents of this set. But the first item inside is this black case, which is also the same kind of material as the outer box, and again with the same Musical History of Disneyland logo, which you've got this burst behind Sleeping Beauty Castle, and these three trumpets that form a hidden Mickey. And as you can tell, the gold background is actually reflective, as you can see the camera's reflection in there. If you bought this set back when it was first released, you actually got a record with the set called Walt Disney Takes You to Disneyland. I'm not sure what was on it, as only the box sets that were released for the opening of the 50th anniversary came with this record. But it was actually a reissue of a record that had been released years before. But inside this black cover are the 6 CDs. As you can tell, these CDs use attraction poster art. So disc 1 we have the Swiss Family Treehouse, and it has music from Main Street USA and Adventureland, as well as New Orleans Square, I believe. And disc 2 we have the Heffalumps and Woozles room from Winnie the Pooh, and this also includes Winnie the Pooh, Rivers of America, and Frontierland. Disc 3 has the shapes of It's a Small World and contains Fantasyland, and I believe Toontown. No, Toontown is disc 4 because we've got Benny the Cab from the Roger Rabbit facade, and I believe Fantasyland is split over discs 2 and 3. Disc 4 has a lot of Tomorrowland, and I believe disc 4 and disc 5 both have Tomorrowland. For disc 5, we have the People Mover from the old attraction poster, the first one. And then we've got Mickey fighting Maleficent in Fantasmic, with the river being on fire for disc 6. And what disc 6 was all just sort of holiday overlay type of music, as it also included tracks from Haunted Mansion Holiday in addition to the Electrical Parade and Phantasmic. And as you can see, the disc holders form Mickey. We had never gotten such a comprehensive music collection for Disneyland theme park music. At my parents' house, we still have the old cassettes, the Disneyland Walt Disney World official album, which contained a lot of music that was common between the two resorts. For example, you had the Electrical Parade, you had Yo Ho, Yo Ho, Pirate's Life for Me, Grim Grinning Ghosts, Swanee River, Minnie's Yoo-Hoo, and probably one of my most favorite music tracks on that cassette was Magic Journeys, which I don't have any memory of watching that 3D film, but I do know it played at Disneyland for a limited time before the Magic Eye Theater was built out of the old space stage beneath Space Mountain. Probably one of the most psychedelic songs the Sherman Brothers wrote, but it is a very interesting song to listen to. Some of the strange music choices on this collection, for example, on disc 1 with Splash Mountain, it's actually the opening day version. The version we have now has the Burrows Lament being sung by the Mother Rabbit and Mother Possum between that last lip hill with the old Boot Hill Boy Vultures and the Laughing Place. And back then, the attraction originally had, or was supposed to have, Sooner or Later, which is a completely different song. And I don't know, to me it just feels kind of like it really changes the flow of the attraction, because you go from Laughin' Place to a completely different song and then back to that dark, ominous version of Laughin' Place that plays for the final lift hill. I know I didn't ride the attraction when it first opened in '89, so I'm not exactly sure if Sooner or Later was actually used and when it changed, but that's what's on that disc. Or if you were to listen to Haunted Mansion Holiday here on disc number 6, it's actually the original 2001 version, which had completely different music than the Danny Elfman-inspired soundtrack that we have now. The soundtrack that's on the attraction now is more like what you hear in the movie, whereas the original 2001 version had music that sounded more Christmassy, as you hear tunes such as Jingle Bells in there. And there were a few things that were really more tracks used to promote attractions. Even though the People Mover is featured as the disc art for disc 5, we don't actually get any of the ride music from the People Mover. What we get is a track called Nation on Wheels, which goes with the People Mover. You've heard this track before if you've watched Disneyland After Dark, because it's the same music that plays over the monorail and sometimes gets mistaken for the monorail song in that episode. But with these discs, you will also hear some sound effects and things, kind of ambient kind of noises. For example, when the monorail song is about to start, you actually hear one of the monorail's horns give 2 toots, just as when the monorail is about to depart the station and you hear the monorail whir by. Or at the end of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, you do hear Pooh giggle the way that he usually giggles. We've also got some extinct attractions on these discs, because they included the 1967 version of the Carousel of Progress, the full show, in addition to the Disneyland Act 5 of Carousel of Progress. We're even treated to the original submarine voyage as well as America Sings. But all that music across 6 discs, and there are actually 2 items included inside this box. The black cover has the music, and the yellow cover is actually this sort of coffee table book called The Sounds of Disneyland. And it's a really nice book to look at, as this book contains all beautiful glossy pages. It actually gives you an overview here in the table of contents which attractions are featured in this book, which everything is of course organized by land, and every page just has just this artwork. For example, the table of contents page has this facade rendering or facade elevation for a dark ride in Fantasyland. This one isn't specific, but just a concept drawing of an attraction facade for a dark ride in Fantasyland, as you can see the castle wall behind. And this page with the Mickey actually lists all the different tracks, and some things actually give you a breakdown of the tracks in here. For example, on disc 3, where you have Fantasyland music, you have the Fantasyland Dark Ride Suite, which is a medley of music from Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Mr. Toad, and Alice. For some reason, no Snow White, but if you were to look at the listing for this track, you would see all the different pieces of music listed individually, such as You Can Fly, You Can Fly, You Can Fly for Peter Pan, followed by A Pirate's Life, and Never Smile at a Crocodile before the Merrily song from Mr. Toad kicks in. And of course you've got this page with the castle on one side and words from Richard Sherman just before the preface. And there's even a page in here dedicated to the Sherman brothers, who have written so many just classic and iconic Disney tunes over the decades, which, if you've seen movies like Mary Poppins or written It's a Small World, you're always going to recognize their songs. But just all these beautifully laid out pages, such as this one for Main Street USA, which depicts the train station, and we get this rendering for what the train station looks like here, sitting on top of the berm. And we do have photos as well in this book, and it'd be nice to be able to go through page by page, but there is sort of a time limit to work on here. But just all these different pages containing all sorts of illustrations and photos. Like here is the Enchanted Tiki Room, and we see all these different renderings of birds in the attraction, as well as even a photo of the old Barker bird that used to sort of call out to you as you walk past entering Adventureland. And just speeding things up here, we're going into New Orleans Square. Usually the big headliners will get more than just a single page, such as Pirates of the Caribbean, which sometimes it just kind of blows my mind just how popular this attraction continues to be, when you consider that it's been open since 1967 and it still just packs people in every time I go to the park. And you know, it's just interesting to see all the different people that go to these attractions like Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion, and just to see people both young and old, and people who are not only from America but from other countries in Asia and Europe and even the Middle East that come just to ride these attractions that have just all become classics in their own rights. And Haunted Mansion here gets a good 4 pages by itself, as well as a page dedicated to the Disney Gallery in Club 33, which, if you've never been to Disneyland before, above Pirates of the Caribbean, where the Disneyland Dream Suite now sits, that was where the Disney Gallery was for a whole 20 years from 1987 to 2007. A space that was going to be Walt's new apartment, which I had gone up there before, and you know, it's just really neat to be able to walk into that space and just to be able to walk up there where that could have been where Walt lived. You know, some photos here and drawings of Splash Mountain, which also has its own history, its own interesting history, as many of its animatronics came from the old America scenes, such as this goose and that bird that was in a gilded cage. You know, we got Winnie the Pooh and some stuff here on Frontierland. Trying to zip through here because I only got a few minutes left. Golden Horseshoe Review is also featured in here, which we get a photo of the late great Wally Bogue. Actually, he appears in 2 photos, as well as the late Beta Taylor. In Fantasyland, we get this old photo of old Fantasyland, which sometimes I just try to picture the old Fantasyland. The new one opened in '83 when I was only 2 years old, and my earliest memory of Disneyland involves sitting outside of Pinocchio, and I just somehow know in this memory Pinocchio was a fairly new attraction at the time, so it must have been maybe between '83 and '85, I would guess. But 4 of the dark rides get their own page here, such as Snow White and Peter Pan's Flight. We even see the old elevation for the facade before the new Fantasyland remodel, which, you know, included those beautiful facades that we see now, that really make the land look like this Bavarian village. We've got Pinocchio, which has always been one of my favorite movies and rides. I still remember seeing Pinocchio back when it was re-released in the 80s at the old Polka Fiesta Dollar Theater, which at that theater I know I saw Pinocchio and Beverly Hills Cop with my dad. Peter Pan I saw multiple times at the old Tri-City Mall Dollar Theater several times. That was probably my favorite movie as a kid. We've got a couple of pages devoted to It's a Small World. Nice Walt photo here with the dolls. And here's that page I mentioned, just dedicated to the Sherman Brothers, who wrote so many of those Disney songs that we're probably always humming in our heads. They also included some stuff here on Tomorrowland, such as the Disneyland monorail and an old concept art of what they envisioned for the monorail. The old suspended type, similar to the Wuppertal monorail, which they say Lily and Disney did not like by the motion. An old aerial photo of the monorail around 1959. As well, oops, excuse me, I just dropped the camera. As well as Inner Space and Star Tours, which is just another attraction that just keeps going in its popularity. We've even got the Carousel of Progress. This is what the Unload Theater looked like according to this drawing as you went up the speed ramp to the 2nd floor to see Progress City. And we've also got a whole page dedicated to America Sings and the People Mover and Space Mountain, as well as the seasonal attractions. And that is the musical history of Disneyland.